This is Live from the Table, the official podcast of the world-famous Comedy Cellar, coming at you on Sirius XM 99 Raw Comedy, and also available where you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Dan Naturman here without Noam. Noam is in Japan. He's on vacation. I guess he doesn't feel like zooming in. That's fine. We can discuss things of a less political nature this week because he's not here. We have Periel coming at us via Zoom from some location. Where are you, Periel?
I'm in South Carolina.
Okay, well, welcome. What are you doing down there?
I'm on a family vacation.
Okay, family vacation. And we have with us in studio also a Southerner, not also a Southerner, but a Southerner, and not from South Carolina, but from Alabama. Gray West joins us.
Hello, Dan. Hey, y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me today.
Hello, Gray. Gray is a new, relatively new Comedy Cellar comedian. It's part of our Get to Know You series, where I get to know comics that are newly working at the Comedy Cellar. By the way, Max Marcus is also with us. He's behind the wall there. He does our sound. He has a date after the show, and if we find ourselves running out of things to discuss, we can certainly inquire because I think Max's dating life is it could be of interest.
It could be, yeah.
Is this a first date?
Second date.
Oh, it's a second date. Okay,
Yeah.
well, if you got a second date, because that's the tough part, right? Getting past the first date. In any case, by the way, before we get to Gray, speaking of Sirius Satellite, did I mention that they rejected all of my tracks that I submitted to them?
Numerous times.
Okay, yeah. I did a recording here at the Comedy Cellar for tracks to play on Sirius, and I sent it in, and they rejected all of them. And I don't. My contact at Sirius says it's because the audience wasn't sufficiently enthusiastic. But that leaves open the. What's that?
Well, we discussed this though, and we said that you should just retape it in like a hotter room, and it would probably be perfect.
The question is did they like the jokes but say to themselves, these are great jokes, but the audience really isn't responding? Or did they say to themselves, because the audience wasn't responding, they just decided that they weren't good jokes? That's a very important distinction, because that will influence where to go from here. In other words, if I do the same jokes that they've already heard and decided, because they didn't hear laughs, that they decided that these can't possibly be good jokes, and then I resubmit them, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
I think that the idea is that you want to have laughter as part of the track. I mean, I think that's standard.
I understand that, but I'll repeat it because apparently my point fell on deaf ears. Did they say to themselves, these are great jokes, where are the laughs? Or did they say to themselves, well, we're not hearing laughs. I mean, I don't know. These probably aren't very good jokes. So those are two different scenarios. In any case,
do you want an answer to that?
Well, you don't work for Sirius, but you can certainly hazard a guess.
I actually do work for Sirius because the show's on Sirius.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
I think that the jokes are, by all accounts, great jokes and part of standard operating.
That doesn't mean that Sirius sees it that way. They don't hear laughs. They're like, I don't know.
Why don't you just try re-recording it, since it wouldn't be that big of a deal to do that?
Well, it is a big deal because to record 45 minutes to an hour means that I have to get the room for an hour and fill it sufficiently so that the laughs are good. That's no easy feat. Or I can do like just string together the sets that I do normally, I guess, which requires some editing wherewithal. Anyway, I don't want to belabor that. Gray West joins us.
Yes. Hello. How are you?
How are you, Gray? Gray is
there's a laugh.
Gray, as I said, is a new comedian here, relatively new. I don't know, a year, 6 months. I don't know.
Yeah, I joined the Comedy Cellar in January, the end of January. So it was like January 27th, I think.
And have you been working in New York for a while, or did you just come to us right off the bus stop?
I
from Alabama.
I did used to. So I worked in New York. I lived in DC since 2013, and I started doing comedy there in about 2021. And I started sneaking up to New York like maybe once a month and would do shows at like random bar shows. I would also work at like different other clubs. But then I've fully I got into the Comedy Cellar in January, and then I moved up to New York in May, at the end of May, and started living here full time. But I was taking the bus back and forth every weekend.
So I was on to something regarding the bus.
Yes, you were. I would always used to show up with my suitcase here when I first got in, and I would come in with like my rolling suitcase on Thursday nights, and then I would do the show, and then I would leave and go over and crash at my friend's house. And then on Sundays when I came to the club, I would have my suitcase with me, and after I got done with the show, I would get back on the bus and go back to DC.
Gray is well, every time I see you, you're emceeing.
Yes, yes.
So I don't know if you just MC or you're doing actual regular spots.
I only MC, and this comes up like so much all the time, which is it's probably like once every 3 days, a comic here at the club will come up to me and be like, when are you going to do spots? Like, oh, you got to do some spots, go do some spots. And I'm like, and you know, as well as anybody, we're not in control of that. And like, I trust like the booker, I trust like the owner and everything. They have a vision, they have a plan when they make the lineups. And I think right now in my career, they have me emceeing. I enjoy it. I have so much fun. I think there's something beautiful about starting the party and getting them ready and have like setting up a successful room so that the other comics can do well as well and go in good atmosphere.
Well, as far as you not being able to control, I mean, if you say to Esty, the booker, you know, what about, I don't really want to MC because she needs MCs. So
right.
As long as you're willing to MC, you're going to get that. But if you say to her, I kind of tired of MCing, I just want to do spots. I mean, that could move things in that direction, but it also could jeopardize everything and you might not get anything at all.
That's the thing. But
as long as you're willing to MC, I don't think she's ever going to say, oh, enough with MCing. Let's get your regular spots. I don't know that that's ever happened in the history of the Comedy Cellar. Right? It might. I just don't know. I've never heard of it.
Right. I don't know. I'm new here, so I've never
heard of like anybody being told, yeah, enough. You're right. Enough MCing with you. Just get you. As long as you're willing to MC.
I've talked to like some older comics in that used to MC, and then after a couple years, some slowly transitioned into like doing spots.
But I think you got to lay down the law.
Maybe, but I don't know if I'm at a place right now.
Yeah, right. You got to wait to that. At a certain point, if you're big enough,
right?
You know,
and I'm having fun.
Then you could say, look, I got I'm up to 200,000 followers, and whatever would be the you know would be the criterion,
right?
You know, for you to have enough muscle to say, yeah, I don't MC no more. I don't know if you heard the news, but I don't do that no more.
Right. But right now I feel like I'm just listening to opportunities, and that's the one I'm getting. So I'm trying to capitalize on it, but I'm also making sure I'm not resting back and just being like, okay, let's just MC and like do we have any birthdays? Are we doing this? Like, I still want to work on like the art of comedy. And so within that, I'm trying to build a half hour right now. But when you're given the light at 8 minutes every night, you're like, how do you do that? And I do have like my jokes that I use within a host set that are like, oh, I hate to use the word, but I feel like they're a club trick. And then I feel like other jokes are more about like who I am and stories, and I'll put those in there. On top of that, I had try and put in one-liners, and then I do a little bit of crowd work just so that like the audience's ear is ready for the different types of jokes that they'll hear on the lineup.
I mean, this is the question that is Periel with us? Periel,
I'm
you
here.
with us? Okay,
I am with you.
The question I ask myself over and over again is, you know, what is the art of emceeing? Does it make a difference if it's a hot crowd? is that really the main um the main factor, or can a good MC make a hot crowd? Or, if an MC does all jokes and no crowd work, does it help or hurt? If an MC does all crowd work and no jokes, does it help? I just, in my observation, I haven't come to a clear conclusion.
I don't know.
Yes, I
throw it
think
all.
so. I think that if you watch, I think that there is definitely an art to emceeing and hosting a show. And if you watch somebody like, I don't know, James Mattern, you're like, wow, like you really lean into your obligation to not necessarily your own jokes, but making the show great, right?
Right.
I think
James creates an environment like, here's a party, we're all invited, I'm the host. But how much does that factor into how well I'm going to do after he goes on, or me, or any other comic? I haven't done a meticulous study of this. I do know that when I hear James, I feel like this is a party and we're all invited.
Yeah, I think that an MC needs to be generous and not selfish, right? Like you're not thinking of yourself, you're thinking of setting up the next person, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I try and do. I try and set up everyone. So like if there's like darker people, or like people who have darker jokes on the show, sometimes I'll slip in like a darker one just to be like, hey, get your ear ready, this will happen. Or this is if I just to like loosen up the audience to get different ways. And then also you can get a gauge, because like I can go through like the first 3 or 4 jokes, and then if I'm just getting like a heartbeat monitor, boop, 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 laughs, I'm like, this is something. So how do we get the like car started? And so, because I remember one night, it was like a couple nights ago, I went through it and it was like little chuckles. And I looked at the guy on the front row and I said, what's up, glasses? And you would have thought it was the greatest joke ever. Like people were just like dying laughing. I'm like, oh, you want to be talked to. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so then I did more talking to, where then sometimes if you go in the front row, arms are crossed, lips are pursed, you're like, okay, like you got to loosen them up a little bit, but I try not to keep picking at a scab if it's there. I'm like, okay, just shift gears, pull back into material, and then let it ride to the light.
Max, I forgot, are you a comic or not?
Yeah, I do stand up.
Okay, all right. Where do you MC?
No, I mean, not here.
I know.
I've hosted other places. I've hosted my own show before.
Well, feel free to jump in if you have any
oh yeah,
any MC tidbits or thoughts or whatever.
Well, I know they always say like, oh yeah, you go, Periel.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that one of the things I've heard a lot is that you should do more crowd work. But then I've also heard that, if you're not a big crowd work person.
Well, I've heard comics say that if all you do is crowd work, their ear is not tuned to jokes.
Yeah.
So I mean, and again, I don't know, to what extent that's true. I mean, it sounds like it should be true.
For me, if as MC, I try and do a little bit that touches, it's like the appetizer, but like you get a little bit of each. And so, because what I love when I first started comedy, I didn't know, like I was at open mics just talking to people. Like I had the jokes written because I went and watched comics for like a while before I started. I watched like everyone in DC for like 3 months, but like I hadn't picked up a microphone. So I would just show up in like jeans and a t-shirt, sit in the audience and watch. And when I first started, I was like, oh, you have to say something different like every time you step on stage. And then after watching 3 months of like the same people, I'm like, oh, it's an act. Oh, you build like an act. And then so I like built some jokes, but then I found more joy in creating a spontaneous moment that's like organic in the moment with someone. And then it was like 4 or 5 months in, people started saying like, oh, Gray's a crowd work comic. Gray's a crowd work comic. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And they're like, oh, you talk to the audience. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we're supposed to. They're like, no, you write your joke. Because DC can be very regimented in the style of comedy. I feel like there's maybe might get pushback on this, but whatever, leave it in the comments. There's probably like 3 or 4 comedians in DC who crowd work successfully. And so I think that I think but it's such a on the other hand, they do produce great joke writers and like great structure.
Here to me is the key to crowd work.
Yeah.
Lack of anxiety.
Yes.
You have got to be able, the reason I don't do crowd work, mainly is because, well, number one, I just don't prefer it as a artistically, but number two, you have to be relaxed because you don't know if shit's going to come to you. So you have
Right.
to be able to say, where are you from? Oh, we're from Alabama, you know.
Mhm.
And if you don't get anything with that, you got to say, what do you do in Alabama? Which is sort of the standard thing that it's a little tired at this point, but
Yeah.
comics will say, what do you do in Alabama? Oh, I'm a mechanic.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you do? And you got to keep doing that until you get something that triggers a joke. And you don't know when that's going to be. And so you have to be relaxed enough to be able to keep going and not panic and say, shit, nothing's coming.
Right.
Which is my main reason that I don't do it. But some comics are completely relaxed and they'll let it go, you know, however many questions they need until they get the right combination of information that will lead to a punchline that's serviceable.
Right. And that's sometimes the toughest part, especially in like the beginning of the show, is their ears are still getting adjusted. They're still ordering drinks. Some are looking at the menu. So like if I would love normally in other places I would do different, like more in-depth crowd, but here sometimes you just have to hit with the quick, what do you do, where are you from, so that baseline is already set for the show on the front row. So we have like a little bit of like, oh, they're dating.
But what if nothing comes to you after, what do you do, where are you from?
Shift gears and pull back into material. Keep the car
Yeah,
going.
I mean, that doesn't really happen if you're, I don't know. I think that doing like hosting and emceeing, like it makes you really sharp because you have to be ready to catch anything.
Well, you can also have shit like, I mean, the only crowd work I generally do is when I know I already have a place that I'm going to go anyway. Like I have a joke about going to Canada. So I say, hey, any Canadians? Oh, oh yeah, I was just there. I didn't, actually didn't have, I got a bad vibe up there. They usually laugh at that. Sometimes they don't. And then I just do a joke, but I just try to make it like a conversation, but I know exactly where I'm going.
Right.
So any Europeans here? Well, there's two types of Europeans that speak English and Europeans that don't speak English.
Right.
So if they're from England, I do my joke about, oh yeah, England, we that's why we speak English here. And then I do my joke about how we popularize the English language. But if they don't speak English, I'll say, oh, so you speak you speak French, and I guess you speak English because you're here. And then I do my joke about how Americans are unilingual.
Right.
So either way, I'm covered. Now, if they say Scotland or Ireland, then it's like, that's the worst possible. Because then I can't really say, we took your language, because the Scotch, I guess, had their own language and the Irish had their own language.
But
then I'll usually just say, yeah, you speak English there too. Do you speak the same English that we speak? And then I'll do my joke about how we abbreviate everything. Like I'll say, do you say perf instead of perfect? And then I got a joke about that. So I'm covered. Whatever they say, I'm covered.
That's been the hardest part. Definitely one of the harder parts about working here is it's amazing because you get people from all over the world come to the Comedy Cellar every night on different times and different days, and they're filling up, and you never know where they're coming from. But then coming from a background of like small town Alabama, like getting to know the crowd, they're mentioning countries I've like never heard of, and I'm like, and so like I could sometimes feel myself choking up and that, but
you could just say, I'm from Alabama. I don't know.
And that's what I've started doing, and then have like an Alabama. But I'm hoping to travel more in 2025, get out, see the world.
Well, that's as good a segue as any to get into more in-depth, deep dive, if you will, about Mr. Gray West. Comes from Alabama, which is interesting in and of itself, because other than the late Vic Henley, I don't know if you knew Vic. Vic died during COVID. He died of pulmonary embolism. And I don't know if that was related to COVID or not, but in any case, it was quite sudden. He was a comic from Alabama. But other than that, I don't know any Alabama comics or Alabama people generally. So right there, that's kind of interesting. We from Muscle Shoals?
No, I grew up in Huntsville. I grew up in Huntsville, a town outside of Huntsville. I grew up in Madison, Alabama. Lived there for about 18 years. With 2 of those years we lived in Memphis, Tennessee, but then we moved back. And then went to University of Alabama for 2 years.
Was that the Tide or is that?
Yeah, the Crimson Tide. And then it sucked because, well, it was actually kind of awesome because my parents, I went to college and then 2 weeks later they moved from our childhood home to Biloxi, Mississippi, which is a awesome town, so much fun. And so it was kind of wild going home from college for Christmas and stuff. I'd go to this house that I never knew, never grew up in, but it's on the coast with like 20 casinos and beaches and everything. And so that was like an adjustment. And then once I graduated from college, they moved to Nashville and now they're in Georgia. But so yeah, after graduating college, I wanted to leave Alabama. I just wanted to get out. I knew a lot of people that moved to New York City at the time, but then I saw like the pattern of them always moving back 8 months later and working at like the Best Buy or Ruby Tuesdays. And I was like, I don't know if I want to move to New York. And like, because the pattern I saw in like day to day was them moving back. And I was like, I don't want to come back. So I looked at like smaller cities and I had a friend that lived in Washington, D.C. So I decided, I was like, hey, I'm going to go there. It's a smaller city. It's more manageable. I can understand it. And so I took off and did that.
Now we people, the northern stereotype of Alabama, of course, you know what that is, and you play on that somewhat in your act.
Yes.
But was it that way growing up?
I had a very supportive family. Like it has the stereotype, especially like, oh, gay in the South, like, oh, you must have like, been kicked out of the house when you came out and everything. Like, no, my parents were like really understanding, very loving. And I was more nervous to tell them about it because I'd heard all the stereotypes of just like, oh, well, you can be disowned, you'll be kicked out. And I was like, oh no. And so I told my brother's wife at the time about it. I was like, hey, I like this guy. And then she's like, okay. And then my brother saw the message and he was like, hey, just want to let you know, I love you no matter what. You're amazing. Like, I'll always be there for you. I said, thank you. I really appreciate that. He said, wonderful. You have 2 weeks to tell mom and dad or else I will. And I'm like, no, like, this is not like, looking back, that's like toxic or whatever, but it happened. It was a Band-Aid that got ripped off. And so, I remember it was like the end of the 2 weeks and I went home to like pick up books and I just told them, I was like, mom, dad, like, I'm gay. And they're like, okay, well.
Well, they likely knew. I'm not saying you're outrageously flamboyant,
Right.
but any parent that I imagine your parents are somewhat sophisticated people because you're a somewhat sophisticated person,
right?
Would have to pick up on it. They live with you, every day.
I guess so. I want to say they were more shocked than we thought, but that is what it is.
Were they?
They were, yeah. They didn't know. Everyone else in my life I told, they were like, yeah, Gray, like we knew. But like I was the last one to say it. Like, and then I had really supportive friends that were like, we know. And
how old were you?
I came out late. I came out second semester, senior year of college. So
oh wow.
Yeah, I was just like in the closet bopping around, like trying to make straight work. But it didn't. It just like
wait, so you in high school, and you went to high school, I guess, in the 2Ks?
Yeah, I went to Bob Jones High School in
geez.
Madison, Alabama. It's
is that a Christian school?
No relation to that one.
Okay.
It was Bob Jones was a senator from Alabama, and so I graduated 2009 from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, was there any? Because when I was in high school, the teachers would make gay jokes. I mean,
Right.
this was the 80s, and if you were gay, you stayed in the closet. You fucking did not crack that door of that closet open,
Right?
Because it maybe in New York City it was different, but in the suburbs, as I said, we had teachers making gay cracks. You just did not dare.
Well, mine
And I don't
was-
know what it was like in high school in the 2Ks
I had a
in Alabama.
I found my tribe in like the theater department at Bob Jones High School, and we had like amazing teachers, and there were people who were out at the time that were amazing people as well. There was also that battled with so I was being gay,
And you
was,
had the
like, okay.
internet too.
It was just starting, so like I wasn't able to like, there weren't the resources.
Mhm.
The best resource I had were like friends that were, and I went to a church at the time, and like gay was considered a sin and like all of that. But then also part of coming out, like I did talk to my dad, and I think this was like good advice. I was like, Dad, like, do you think I'm going to hell because I'm gay? And he's like, Gray, we're not gonna know until we get to the pearly gates.
Well, that's
We're
not
not.
that's not a no.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like,
It's not a great answer.
well, it
But
was
I
very
guess-
supportive. And he was like, as long as you live your life, like, you know, the best you can and love, then, you know.
Well, Gray, I'm here to tell you the good news is you're not going to hell.
Yes.
The bad news is you're not going to heaven either.
I know that's
You
the
know,
problem.
There's just
We
nothing
have
out
to
there.
do the best we can every
You
day.
know.
That's the thing.
It's just that as far as I'm concerned, the only hope for life after death is reincarnation.
Mhm.
I think that's a possibility.
Right.
Follow my reasoning.
Yeah.
We came into existence once. We know that, right?
Right.
Okay, so why can't it happen again?
That's true.
You know, I mean, I came into consciousness. I mean, I was born in 69, but I came into consciousness maybe about 72 when I actually was aware. So that happened.
Right.
So why can't it happen again? It happened once. That's my reasoning. I don't know if it makes any sense at all.
So deep. I mean, it might. There's a lot of like different. I mean, there's many paths up the mountain, but we don't know like what's.
But
up
as far as like clouds and heaven and
Yeah,
winged
yeah.
angels, yeah, I don't
I don't know.
subscribe. I don't subscribe to that.
Right. I just try. Yeah, I just try and live like every day because we don't know, and so I try and live every day like the best I can and make good decisions because I made tons of bad ones in the past, and so now I'm just kind of like, and that's almost like when I started doing comedy was to just bring, it sounds so corny every time I say it, and people are like, what? But like, I just to bring joy to people, like that's what I wanted to do, and just to make people laugh at like its core. And that's just like what I got into it, because I've failed, I've been fired from jobs, I've failed out of school, I've done horrible things, but the flip coin of it is along the way I've always made people laugh, even when they were like the maddest at me.
What was the best job you got fired from? Like, what was your best, like your
Chief
crazy-
of thoracic surgery at Mount Sinai.
the best job I got fired from? I'm trying to think. Now I got put on the spot. I'm trying to think. I remember I walked out of a job in high school because like we were playing in the kitchen, and they had these sesame seeds, and I was pretending to be Mary Poppins feeding the birds, throwing them around the kitchen, singing "Free the Bird" or "Feed the Birds," and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What? Like I'm being Mary, like feed the bird." But I was throwing them in a kitchen during like rush hour, and they're like, "What are you do?" But I was making people laugh doing it, and they're like, "Go home," and I was like, "Okay," and then they never had me back, but it was funny.
Well, so other than making people laugh, which is noble,
Right.
but you know, in terms of your career, will you be content with simply making a living, making people laugh, or do you aspire to some level of fame and or fortune and or notoriety?
I think right now I'm taking it day by day. I know there's a lot of opportunities out there for me. I just can't hear them yet or see them. And like this is the perfect example of one, because like the way I got into, you know how my like audition process went through here.
Well, I know how audition processes usually go,
Right.
unless yours was any different.
It was I never auditioned in McDougal. I
Just for those who may not know, but the Comedy Cellar has several rooms,
Yes.
and McDougal Street is the original room.
So the Comedy Cellar I knew of, but I never was like, oh, this is like, it was such a goal. But then we were doing opening night of Rodney's. And then
Rodney's Comedy.
Yes, Rodney's Comedy Club. We did opening night. I was hosting, and I remember all the comedians were just sitting around laughing, joking, and then Noam, Esty, and Liz walked in, and I didn't know who they were. I didn't know, like, I saw what they looked like. I saw them walk in to the thing, but every comic there, and like everyone immediately dived into their notebooks. They're just like writing and like kind of split off, and they were like, oh, that's like the owner, booker, like they work at the Comedy Cellar, and I'm like, oh, whoa, that's cool. And so I went on stage, did my thing at Rodney's. I did fine. The mic went out halfway through the set, so in my mind I was like, come on, keep it up, keep it positive, and just kept it going. Had a good show, had a fun time. There was like after reception because it was opening night, and I saw them there, and I don't know, they were talking to everybody else, and I was like, I don't know that I should introduce myself, but like the moment never came up, and I had to catch the bus back to DC, so I was like, all right, let's go back. And I left, and I was like, okay, that was cool. That was a great like experience. And then the Cellar started following me on Instagram on Sunday, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I had another show at another club that Thursday. So I came back into town, and I was like, I'm gonna go to Olive Tree and just like eat and like get like, something to eat and check it out, see what it's about. Because I've seen shows here, but only at the Fat Black Pussycat location. And I ran into Noam, and he was like, hey, you're great. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I was at the opening of Rodney's, wonderful job, great stuff. And I was like, oh, thank you. He was like, do you want to come downstairs and see a show? And I was like, no, I can't right now. Because it was like 15 minutes till I had to go host somewhere else. And he was like, I was like, no, but if you have any opportunities here, I'd love to do it. And we exchanged emails. And so the next morning I sent him my stuff. And then that afternoon, Esty emailed me and was like, please put in avails. And so,
but she didn't say put in avails for emceeing. She just said put in avails.
She just said put in
and
avails.
then you did, and then she said, can you MC?
No, never. She just said please put in avails. And then I called one other comic that I felt comfortable here and asked him like, what does this mean? How does that look like? What is all this? And like he was able to walk me through it. And I just put in the dates, and then I got the dates back, and it was all MC spots. And I was like, okay, cool. So I just did it. So if that's what she needed me to do, I'm here to do it.
I'm surprised that they didn't initially say to you, oh, is emceeing something you'd be interested in doing?
I think no, they never did. And we will but also on the other side, they did see me MC at Rodney's. So maybe in their mind, they're like, oh, you MC. But also, I don't mind it. I know some people do have a stigma about it, but.
Well, it's not really a stigma. It's like at a certain level, you don't MC. At a certain level of fame and or fortune and or whatever,
right,
and or follower count or whatever it would be, there's some level that you just don't MC.
Right.
It's no longer appropriate to MC. Like one time there was Rich Aronovich, who's an MC here, couldn't make it. He got confused. There was a misunderstanding, whatever. So Liz or somebody, I guess it was Liz, said to me, Dan, can you MC around the corner? And I did.
Now,
but
how'd it go?
It went fine. I don't love MCing.
Did you level the place?
No. It was okay. It was at the Fat Black Pussycat bar.
Wow.
But the point is she felt perfectly comfortable asking me to MC.
Right.
Which is an insult in a way.
Why do you think that's an insult?
Well, insofar as she wouldn't ask, let's go through the list here. There's people that she simply wouldn't ask.
Right.
So you are so ridiculous.
Hold on a second.
Really.
Is
this
it an
whole
insult?
line of is
no,
so out of control.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Let him go.
Basically, what you're saying to me is you're not famous, which I guess you could regard as an insult or simply a truism. and was giving me an opportunity to make an extra $125 or whatever that it pays. But okay, so Jim Norton, obviously she wouldn't have asked that. Mike Birbiglia, she wouldn't have asked. Sam Morrill, she wouldn't have asked. I'm just going through the list here.
What about like hosting?
Ryan Hamilton, she probably wouldn't have. Ryan Hamilton is like right on the border.
We are saying,
but she wouldn't have asked him. He's over the border. She wouldn't have asked.
But what if you were asked to MC?
Chris Redd, obviously she wouldn't ask. That goes without saying.
Dan, did it ever occur to you?
Yeah,
did it ever occur to you that maybe she asked because you're
Jordan
like
Jensen?
oh my God.
I don't think she would ask Jordan. I think Jordan's got 500,000 followers on Instagram. I think she wouldn't ask. But anyway, what was your point? Yeah, go ahead. Periel, you were about to say.
I was saying that you're out of control, and I think that
I'm not out of control. I'm just saying those people. You'll grant me, she would not have asked those people.
No, I'm not sure I would. I would say that there's another possibility.
Can ask Chris Redd to MC.
I mean, maybe, I don't know, if she was if Chris Redd were as close to the Comedy Cellar as you are. The other possibility here is that, you've been here for so long and you're really part of the family, that she was in a bind and she felt comfortable to ask you to do it. And also because she knew you would do a good job.
All of those things could be true at the same time. I'm part of the family. I do a good job, but it's also true that were I at a level of, of whatever you want to call it, she wouldn't have asked. Max, can you please set Periel straight?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something to that. She's not going to get like Birbiglia to host, but I also agree that there's other people at the club who, it does say something that she would go to you and trust you for that.
Well, I might have been the only one that was there that wasn't already like had another, because I was I don't know, whatever, The point is how do we get to this? Oh, you said stigma.
I think
it's not a stigma, but it's not a stigma. All it means is you're not famous. You could regard that as a stigma, but that's what it means. I think you're not famous.
I think it's a skill set. I don't think it has to do
I agree with you, Gray. I think it's
but at a certain level of fame, no matter what your skill set is, you're not going to MC. That's it.
Yes, you will, Dan.
No.
Okay, so the Oscars just run by itself?
No, I'm talking about here at the Cellar.
Oh,
you're not going to MC at the Cellar,
but
you might
lead to MCing at the Golden Globes.
And once you MC the Golden Globes, you will never MC at the Cellar ever again.
Maybe, unless you drop in and say,
well, if you drop in and say I'd like to MC, they'd say, oh, well, that's bizarre, but okay,
maybe, yeah,
but it would be unusual. But if Chris Rock wants to MC, they'd be happy to have him,
right?
But they're not going to ask him.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I think we're all in agreement then.
What? No.
Well, we're in agreement that maybe they thought I would do a good job, and it's a compliment on that side of the scale. But it also means that I haven't reached the level at which they wouldn't ask.
So did you tell jokes or did you do crowd work?
Jokes, because like I told you, I don't really do crowd work because, as I've mentioned, I just don't feel comfortable asking enough questions. Like, you got to keep asking questions,
right?
Until you get whatever you need, and you got to be relaxed, because if you're not relaxed, the jokes aren't going to come in an improv capacity.
Yeah, and
I just am too anxious for that to work. That doesn't work for me. So I have to just rely on the jokes that I know work.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes, caller, you say what?
I say that I've never, in all the years that I've known you, seen you in a t-shirt that color before. What's going on?
Well, this is a tie-dyed shirt for those of you who are listening with audio only. This is like I wear this shirt. I don't wear it on stage because I don't feel it conforms to my character.
You're right.
It's a colorful shirt, splashes of pink and light blue and some yellow. Yeah, it's
very happy and good mood-ish. A little bit.
Well, again, not my character, and also my character is, I don't know how you describe it. Gray, maybe you have some. Maybe you know, coming from the outside, maybe you could describe. I don't know how I would describe my character, but it's not this shirt.
Right. No, I don't see that. That shirt feels like you're being cool. Like
Yes,
you're
cool.
like, this is you being cool. Like,
Right,
yes,
cool,
I'm
relaxed.
flowy, I'm relaxed. Yeah.
Relaxed.
It's your hosting shirt.
You
So there
know.
you go.
Nice.
MC.
Nice.
Well, maybe.
Well,
if
we've discussed at length your on-stage persona reflecting in your outfits.
Yes, and you've suggested that I go, and you're not
Wear a
necessarily
suit.
maybe a
I've heard that
suit,
episode.
maybe a suit.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against. I mean, I think the idea is a good one. I just hate wearing suits, and I don't like, being confined to a particular uniform. But you're not wrong that might accentuate. I mean, of course, gray. I don't know if you put thought into your outfits or you just that's what you would wear anyway.
No, I don't. I normally am in like jeans and a t-shirt. But I typically wear this black jeans, boots, cheetah shirt, and a black jacket. I started off doing it because everyone, and when I first started watching comedy at the local scene, everyone kind of looked the same, with just like jeans and a t-shirt, hoodie and a t-shirt. And then I was getting people confused. I'm like, oh, that's so and so. They're like, no, it's so and so. And I was like, and I was like, well, and a part of me was like, no one's really like dressing up for comedy, like in a way. And so I was like, I want to start dressing up. I want to look good on stage. So that way, even if I'm bombing, I still look good. And then, but I was also didn't have that much money. So I just kept wearing the same outfit because I'm like, well, maybe one day when I have money, I can buy nicer outfits and like look better. But then it kind of stuck. They're like, oh, Gray West wears that. And then I saw a quote from Lady Gaga in her Vanity Fair look back video where she was talking about she wore one of like 5 outfits her first 3 years in New York just so people would remember who she was. And I figured that out because a lot of times when the audience leaves, they don't know your name. They remember how you made them feel. If they're coming in like raw, not knowing like any comic, anybody. And so afterwards, they'll be like either, oh, the gay guy, or oh, the guy in the leopard shirt, or oh, the da-da-da. But if they come back and see you, then that's when they like know my name. But like beforehand, they're always like, oh, cheetah shirt. And I'm like, yep, there we go. So that's kind of why I do it.
Well, I mean, I think if you're on stage, I don't practice what I preach, but I think if you're on stage, that's just, you should make some sort of visual impression as well as an impression with your jokes.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be looking good if looking good is not your character.
Right. And that's the thing, because there is because there was a night here, my clothes didn't dry in time, and so I wore just like a red t-shirt and jeans. And Lev Fur, who's been on the pod, he called me a Target employee. I was like, darn it, I do like it. I do. But I was up there hosting. I was running through it. And I tell you what, I can neither confirm or deny that I did well that night. And we'll just leave it at that. But I definitely was like, oh, not doing this again. But there's some people that do go up there and like level the room in jeans and a t-shirt. So it does that. But I think it's like whatever makes you feel like the most comfortable.
Well, if you look at Dave Attell,
right,
his character is sort of this, dirtbag,
right?
Basically,
right. And if Dave Attell,
creepy guy,
yeah. If Dave Attell came in like a 3-piece suit and everything, I'd be like,
yeah, for what he's doing,
trying to do on stage, it wouldn't like translate. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
I don't think that you need to wear a suit. I think that there is an outfit that is just particular that could really work with your act.
Well,
I don't think, and I think you would have to be. I think you would have to be comfortable in it.
When you get back from Myrtle Beach, we can perhaps go shopping. If that's
well, I would be happy to take you shopping. Although I'm not in Myrtle Beach, I'm on Kiowa Island, which
Kiowa Island.
What's Kiowa Island?
We used to vacation there like did there for 10 years. I would always go to the Kiwa Island Kids Camp, that pavilion there by the swimming pool and the reptile center. Have you been to the reptile center there?
I
There's
do.
a
There
couple
are, I mean, there are literally just like alligators gallivanting
everywhere.
around
They're
just
everywhere.
as though it's reasonable.
And they have the best bike paths there on Kiwa Island. I remember that. Just like we would rent bicycles and they'd be like shaded and like with all the willow. It was
It's
beautiful.
really beautiful. I just spent a week in South Dakota. So Kiawah
that was
Island,
part of your family vacation was South Dakota?
yeah, we went to the Badlands. And I will tell you that after spending a week in South Dakota, South Carolina feels like Italy.
Oh, I bet. I'm trying to visit a gay bar in all 50 states with my fiance, and we went to St. David's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I recommend every gay listening to this, they're gonna be like, what? That sounds crazy, but like we went there during happy hour, and the happy hour was $2 top shelf. And I said, what?
Wow.
And then I looked at the bartender. I was like, what do you mean? And they were like $2 top shelf. So I pointed at the Grey Goose and I was like, I'll have a goose and soda. And they poured it $2. And
St. David's was the name of the gay bar?
St. David's. And then it overlooked, when you went out to the balcony, it overlooks the falls, like Sioux Falls. It's not like the most. Like,
I didn't know Sioux Falls
ever.
had falls.
Yeah,
but I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what.
Listen to me. I want to tell you something that we went like on a big family trip with like close family friends and our kids. And one of the couples of our best friends is 2 gay guys and they have 3 kids. And we had this whole long conversation saying that there were no gay bars in all of South Dakota. So I will be so happy to report back to the 2.
So it's called Club David. Club David. I just looked it up. Club David is South Dakota. There are 2 states that do not have a gay bar. Can you guess?
Well, as far as you know, or you know this for a fact that they don't have a gay?
I know for a fact. One just built one, but it's not a traditional gay like bar. It's more of a LGBTQ space that serves alcohol.
Wait, this is going to be a good guessing game. Okay, Dan, you go first. Don't tell us if we're right or wrong.
There's 2 gay states that you say don't have any gay
bars. Don't have any gay bars.
It's hard to believe a state would not have any gay bars, but you said you were going to give us a hint?
Okay, yeah. Do y'all want a hint?
No, first just guess.
Well, because I can't. I mean, I can't begin. I'll just throw a couple out.
No, just think like make like educated guessing.
I can't imagine Mississippi and
no. Mississippi has my favorite gay bar, Just Us in Biloxi. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can still smoke cigarettes in there, and they do Drink or Drown Wednesdays on Wednesday. It's $10 cover, all you can drink from 9 to 12.
I officially love this game. West Virginia.
Nope. Vice versa in Morgantown. And then Stonewall in Charleston. They have 2.
So there's no guessing because
Nebraska.
There's no reason any of this. Alaska?
No.
Alaska has I think it's called the Raven. It's in Juneau.
Nebraska.
All right, you're gonna have to give us a hint.
Okay, so
because there's no
hint is think the most liberal state and the most conservative state.
Well, the most liberal state I thought was Massachusetts, but
more liberal.
Minnesota,
even more.
Vermont.
Correct.
Vermont doesn't have a gay bar?
Nope, because all the bars are so inclusive, there is no need for a gay bar. That is what they say.
Okay, that is fucking ridiculous.
I agree too, but there is one that opened.
Yeah, that seems like
the one that opened
right.
just a while, but it's more of like, I don't want to like talk crap about.
And then you said the most conservative state doesn't have a gay bar?
Well, it's very conservative, but their biggest city is 45 minutes outside of a large liberal city. So it makes sense. Like, why would you build one there if you can just ride into the other city?
Oh, so in other words, it's in another state.
Yeah.
There's a big city in another state
right on
that
the border.
it's right on the border.
Virginia?
No.
Missouri.
No.
Kansas.
Nope. Kansas has one in Wichita we just went to, which was fun. The other one is Wyoming.
I think
because
I was going to guess why.
Cheyenne, Wyoming is about like 45 minutes outside Denver. And then the rest of Wyoming is just barren. So it's barely you get bars in there. But
Doesn't
Cheyenne's the biggest
don't
state.
RuPaul and his husband have like a giant
They
ranch in
do. They have a
Wyoming?
giant ranch. A lot of people do. Like I think one of the Kardashians, I know Jeffree Star. I think just like land is like cheaper there.
I mean, as
And
far as there
you
being
get,
no
like-
need for a gay bar in Vermont,
It's ridiculous.
Well, that's a puzzle.
of course, there's a need for a gay bar because when I walk into a bar, if I'm a gay man, I want to immediately know that everybody in there is gay, so that
agree.
I
so
don't
I
have
can
to.
be like, oh, I can hit on people
Yes,
here which is
without
like,
having
yeah,
to worry about is
well,
this guy gay? or
gonna
not.
get but then they're like, oh,
Well,
no, it's all inclusive. Like, so everyone's welcome to every bar. And I'm like,
that's
well,
just that's absolutely ridiculous.
the logic like circled back around. If that, you know what I mean? It's like, well, no, I mean, I guess like
There
that
are
is,
no
like,
gay
the
bars
goal,
in
but
or near Rapid City. That I can tell you. There are no gay bars
in South
anywhere.
Dakota,
Yeah, on the
Oh,
other
what
no,
about-
there's
side.
only one. That's only Club David.
And you know what else? Dan, I'm sorry to have to, make every show Jewish, but there are only 350 Jews in the entire state of South Dakota.
I'll be honest with you. I thought it was. I'm surprised there's that many.
Well,
But,
there were more when I was there.
What about gay bar names that are, these gay bar names like you had the Toolbox up on the Upper East Side,
Yeah,
like those kinds of names.
let me see if
Do you have any of those on your list?
I like the Saloon.
But that's not a gay name.
No,
I'm saying a name that like just says this is a gay bar because our name is.
Bebop's was one
No,
in
that's not
Mobile,
right.
Alabama.
No.
Woody's.
Woody's.
Woody's in Philly.
Yeah, Woody's is a name that you would say, oh, that's gay.
Sidewinders. That's not that good.
That's not that good.
Oh, Blazing Saddles in Iowa. That's a fun one.
There was a great one in Washington, D.C. called Secrets.
Yes, it closed down.
Yeah.
It closed down during the pandemic. It was downstairs was
Oh.
like a dry. It had like a
Well, it
huge.
closed down because
performance space.
nobody knew it was there. It was secret.
It was secret.
Hilarious.
Well, upstairs was the secret part, which was
Yeah. You
closing
had
down.
to be there was like some law that was like grandfathered in that you could be fully naked, but you had to wear socks.
Yes, that was it.
Mhm.
Now, by the way, I had a joke about gay bars having those kinds of names.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to me that maybe that's a stereotype that really isn't real. Maybe most gay bars don't have those kinds of names.
Gay bars like open and close so quickly. Sometimes it feels like I say quickly, but I mean like within like for a gay bar to stay open more than 10 years, I feel like is an accomplishment because also a new one opens all the time. And I feel like people run to like what's new and what's shiny, and then they'll run there.
Well, they do that in New York with ice cream parlors.
Yes, yeah. They just opened one on McDougal.
And
right down at the end of the
Anita's
corner.
in my neighborhood. I mean, I can't believe how long these lines are for Anita's.
Wow.
I mean, it's good ice cream, but
I've been wanting to go
It's
to
like-
Surreal across the street from Olive Tree for like months. But I'm
Surreal,
not-
is that an ice cream joint?
Yeah, but I don't have like the biggest sweet tooth, but
Anyway, I do want to talk.
Yes.
We don't an incredible amount of time, but you just laid on us that you're engaged.
yes.
You just dropped that on us.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
yeah.
I don't think you mentioned it on stage, at least when I've seen you.
No, I have a joke that's not working, so I don't use it. It's almost ready, but it's in the works. But yeah, no, we've been dating for 9 years. We've been engaged for 2. And we got I met him in DC. He's an amazing guy. And then he also works for Sirius XM. Shout out. But we got engaged in New Mexico. I went out there for a comedy festival, Cloud Top Comedy Festival, which was really fun. And I was like, yeah, let's and New Mexico. I grew up in Alabama and he grew up in Annapolis. And so the idea of New Mexico to us was both like so foreign because like he was used to like coastal ship water and I'm used to like forest and like, cotton fields. And so to go out to like the desert, we were just like, this is so cool. I was like, oh, let's get like a hot air balloon. So we went on a hot air balloon. And like when we were in the air looking over like the Rio and everything, I was like, I asked him to marry me. I was like, I loved it. Like, cause I just love adventuring.
Well,
with
where
him.
did you meet him on? Like
We
an
met on
app?
Tinder.
Tinder, wow,
which was
Tinder.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Because Tinder is like, that's of all the apps, that's sort of the one most associated with just casual hookups, I think.
Well, I think like what it was back in the day too is that Grinder was the gay app Grinder was used for hookups, and then for gays, Tinder was used for actually having like a date and like a relationship. I don't know now. I haven't been on the apps in a while, so I might be dating myself, but I've heard from people now Tinder's just like all hook up everybody. So maybe.
Which brings us
Dan,
to
you skipped over like the most romantic part of that story.
oh, I'm not. I
Like,
guess
you didn't even acknowledge it.
I guess what does that say? Well, what does that say about me?
I got married. I got engaged in a hot air balloon.
In a hot air balloon.
So, where'd you hook up at?
That's
Wait, so
such a
you asked
beautiful.
him?
Yes, yeah. I asked him,
But did you plan it out? Like, let's get engaged.
well, I knew I was gonna do it. So we woke up and then we were to do like a private balloon was like $1,500, and I was like, we're gonna do the one that was like 200 each. So we did that one, and it was fine. There were like other people in the basket, so there was probably like 10 of us in there, I think. But it was cool because this like when we landed, they pop champagne and then they take the cork and the wire and they twist it, and so when they turn it upside down, it looks like a little hot air balloon. And they were like, oh, they popped 2 bottles and they're like, we're going to give one to this one woman who was pregnant, so she wasn't able to go on the balloon, but they booked it before she was pregnant. So her husband went and she just waited at the bottom. And so they were like, oh, here you go. I know.
I didn't know pregnant women can't go on balloons.
Right. I guess not. I guess it's a risk. But then they had the other one and they were like, is anybody celebrating anything here? Because like we kept it quiet, like up there. We just because I didn't want to be like, attention everybody. Like I didn't want to like,
Well, it's not that big a balloon.
Right. It's not, it was a small basket.
It's just a basket.
I don't know these people. Like I didn't want to be
But so
like,
everybody must have heard you.
I whispered it.
Okay.
I was like, do you love me? He was like, yes.
Well, but who in a gay relationship, obviously in a straight relationship, the man is typically, I guess with exceptions, asks the woman's hand in marriage. But in a gay relationship, how do you decide who asks who?
Well, I didn't know. We had the conversation and he was like, growing up, I always envisioned myself being proposed to. And I said, okay, well, I've never thought about it. So I guess I'll do it. Like I've just kind of been like, all right. But
does he fit a stereotype of a more feminine
I think he's just him. I mean, we both have like feminine and masculine traits. So which is like, yeah. What would you say I am? Dan Naturman.
Not outrageously feminine.
Okay.
But not ridiculously masculine.
That's kind of what he is too. So it's a good match. But so the second cork, they were like, oh, is anybody else celebrating anything? And like as I was like, this girl just screams out, it's my birthday. And like her family starts jumping up and down. And so they got the cork from it. And so we were both like, so I wish we had that cork, but we don't. So it's out there.
That bitch.
But it's okay. We did get like a certificate at the end that says like you rode in a hot air balloon, and it has the date on there. And so we have that framed at home.
Max's date, it was not Tinder, Max. You said it was another.
Yeah, it's a Coffee Meets Bagels.
Now, is that Coffee Meet Bagel? Is that a Jewish app? Because
no,
bagel in there?
People think it is, but it's not. It's mostly Asian women on it. Yeah, so in that sense, it's kind of Jewish.
So your date is with an Asian woman?
Yeah.
There is a I mean, the most famous example, of course, is Mark Zuckerberg and his wife. But Asians and Jews have there's a sort of a thing there,
Yeah.
Not an unusual pairing.
No, not
both.
At all.
You're sort of, the model minority achieving, whatever. So they have that in common.
Yeah.
So this is your second date, which is Once you get past the first date, Periel, I'll ask you as a woman,
Mm.
if you give a guy a second date, it's pretty much he's getting laid, right?
Well, I mean, that could be on the first date too.
It could
You don't have
be.
to wait for the second date for that.
You don't have to, but I'm saying if you do give a guy a second date, as a woman, in your mind, what's going on?
I mean, I guess you're willing, you either really liked him the first time or you're not sure and you're willing to find out.
Okay, so getting laid is not a guarantee.
No, but I don't know. I don't think that getting laid is a guarantee, but who's to say that you didn't get laid on the first date and you're going out again?
Oh, yeah, that's true. And I did, for some reason, I just assumed, maybe because Max is so mild mannered, that I just didn't think that happened on the first date. But then it wouldn't even be then it's not a date though.
Why not? You can't go
Because
out on a
once
date
you've
with
had
somebody.
sex, it's not a date. It's just, yeah, me and this chick that I'm smashing are getting together. I don't think it's a date once you've had sex.
Okay, well, when we go shopping, when I get
Gray, do
back,
you have anything to say
Well,
about
gay world's different.
The gay world
It's
is different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
we
we
know
have
that.
sex and then you go on the first date.
Okay.
So,
well,
Is that-
some of us in the straight world do that too.
well.
Well, Periel famously met
All inclusive bar. Everyone's welcome, just like Vermont.
Periel met her husband as a one-night stand. Is that correct, Periel? I believe you said
That is correct.
and then decided that so that's the stereotype about gay guys. Is I didn't want to bring it up, but you brought it up, so we'll follow through. Is that gay guys are promiscuous? That sex doesn't mean as much. It's not as important, and they tend to like have extra, extramarital or extra relationship affairs, and it's no big deal. Is that?
Oh, I'm boring. I'm like traditional, just closed behind bedroom doors traditionally. Yeah.
I don't think that it's more, I think that they just don't subscribe to the same set of like misogynistic.
There's also no risk of pregnancy.
Right.
There's that.
I mean,
too.
this ideology of like, you're not supposed to have sex like on the first date is just ridiculous. It only applies to women. Like straight men, like that doesn't even exist.
Well, I don't know if it's an ideology or if women.
Of course it is. You're a slut. If you're a woman and you have sex on the first date, they say you're a slut. Nobody would ever say that to a straight guy.
No, but first of all, I think times are changing a little bit with that, with regard to that. But also, maybe women don't want to have sex early on because they have a tendency, perhaps, to get emotionally attached after sex and don't want no, okay,
Maybe.
well, that's what I've heard anyway.
I
So
think,
to protect themselves from that, they would refrain from sex until they think there's something real going on.
I think that historically speaking, I agree that it's probably changed. That, women or girls are taught that, that's not proper behavior, or you're not supposed to be promiscuous, or you're supposed to quote unquote save yourself. You're, all of this nonsense.
Right, but to what extent is that, as I said, women wishing to protect themselves from being hurt? Because if they have sex with a man and then there's no follow through, that could be emotionally difficult for them.
Well, only because when the emotions attached to it, how come men aren't? Nobody says that to boys.
Because we don't attach the same emotional weight to sex.
This is a longer conversation.
Okay, well, maybe we'll have it another time. But I think there's something to that. I mean, it's not just cultural, I don't think.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For you, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you became part of the Comedy Cellar, you auditioned?
Well, now my trajectory it was different because I started here before the Comedy Cellar was what we know today as the Comedy Cellar. It was just a club like any other. There was
Right.
no distinction. Oh, the Comedy Cellar now is like, the top of the pyramid, and then there's, the other clubs. In those days, Comedy Cellar was no different. You go to the comic strip, you go to the, what else was there at that time? Stand Up New York, whatever it was. The Comedy Cellar wasn't any higher up on the food chain.
Right.
And they used to have, when I started here, late night after midnight, sort of an open mic kind of thing. It wasn't, you had an audition, but not for Esty, for this guy named, who was it? Was it Mike Royce, I think, at the time, who ran, but everybody passed the audition. I don't think there was a single person that didn't pass the audition. And that's how I started here. And then Esty, I guess, saw me, and then I didn't, so I got in that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
So
never MC.
I did MC, but not initially.
Okay.
I MC'd in later years, like 10 years ago. I said, because I wanted to make a little more money. So I said, Esty, I'd like to MC.
Okay.
And so I MC'd a little bit, but I didn't like it. So I stopped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if you ever what your path was here.
Yeah, so that was my path. I just got in. So I got in here when any idiot could get in. Same way I got into the University of Pennsylvania.
That's it.
When any buffoon could get in. But now it's much harder. It was hard then, but now it's ridiculous.
Was Ivy, though.
Yeah. But it was easier. Now it's like, forget it.
Oh yeah.
Now it's much harder from what I hear.
Right.
So yeah. So that's I got in like before it was anything.
Okay. Well, I never knew that.
Yeah. And then it became, as best as I can recall, it started to become considered kind of higher up, maybe late 90s, when it started to be like, oh, this club is, and then the early 2Ks, and it's a long fucking time of it.
How long were you doing comedy before you?
Not long, because again, any idiot could pass here.
Oh, it was
So I was like 2 years in.
Okay.
When I started doing the late night. It was like after midnight, whoever happened to be left over after the because like, I don't know if they made an announcement. I think they made like an announcement, like, okay, now we're doing like, I think they changed MCs.
They would do like this is the book show. And
yeah, now like if you want to hang out, this is the late night
in the bucket.
portion.
Like, yeah.
I don't know.
But didn't it used to be one long show? Didn't it used to be one show that just...
It used to be a show, one long show, and then the late night, and then then they stopped the late night, and it just became one long show. And up until, I don't know, 2005 or something like that.
Wow. What audience members?
During the week. In the weekend, it was always what it is today.
Would the audience members just get up and come and go, or would they sit for the long show?
I think they came and they would go when they wanted to go.
Oh, okay.
So it was a whole night was one show.
It's just like, let's go downstairs, grab a drink, sit and watch a few
and they would go whenever they went.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And this story's been told a billion times, but sometimes there'd be nobody left in the room, and they would have the waiters and waitresses sit down, just so like when people came in, there'd be people there.
It'd look like,
it would look like, just to keep the place going. So this was, again, like, I think starting in the early 2000s, it started to become more a prestigious place.
Nice.
That and then that just become more and more so. And anyway, okay, well, I guess that's our time.
Well, thank you.
Not
so
that we
much
have
for
time, but
thank you.
I figure leave them wanting more.
Yes, thank you.
And
so much.
thank you, Gray. And we'll see you. I'll see you. Next time you're hosting the show that I'm on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Periel, for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your vacation.
Thank you.
Quinoa Island. Thank you, Matt. And that's it. Comments, questions, and suggestions, podcast@comedycellar.com. Bye-bye.